Hi everyone, it's me Arden Lee. I am back with another video, and today I want to talk about how asking to have our needs met is actually an act of generosity. When we're children, we often receive programming that runs counter to this idea. We're often told as children that speaking up and asking about our needs is selfish, it's attention seeking, we're either subtly punished for it or sometimes just dismissed for it and made to feel that our needs are burdensome or unimportant at the very least. And and sometimes we can carry this programming into our adulthood where it no longer serves us because as adults, the kind of friendships that we want to have and the kind of romantic relationships, professional relationships, creative partnerships that we want to have that kind of clear communication around our needs. We want to start to understand that having that clear communication around what our needs are and how they can best be met is actually an act of generosity to the people who are around us who want to maintain these functional relationships with us. So I'm going to get into that. And in the meantime, if you're not already familiar, my name is Arden Lee, and I am the creator of the Repatterning Project. And if you're enjoying these videos that are on this channel, I would absolutely encourage you to check out the Repatterning Parlor, which is the Facebook group that I moderate. There's a link to it in the description box. Or check out the Facebook page for the Repatterning Project. It's a course in our empowered reality creation, getting there by backwards engineering our beliefs, undoing our programming, and finding the ways of being, the conscious habits and beliefs and thought patterns that we can create for ourselves that allow us to actually create the reality that we want rather than the one that was programmed into us as we as we made our journey upon this earth and took on all of the beliefs and programming from those around us. So absolutely check that out if this is a topic that you enjoy, and come say hi, introduce yourself. Love to see you there. Okay, so let's talk about asking to have our needs met, you guys. I feel like there are so many of us out there who are walking around in these states of terror or shame about the things that we need. And it prevents us from speaking up in the moment about what those needs are. And what ends up happening is that this friction, this tension is created where there's a need that's not being spoken in a given relationship, whether that's a friendship, romantic relationship, professional relationship. And sometimes I can say this from experience, sometimes I truly believe that it's not even a conscious decision. It's actually the fact that for so many of us, we have been so shamed out of expressing our needs that we've gotten to a point where sometimes it's hard for us to even identify what our needs are, because the very act of having needs is frightening to us. It feels dangerous because I know for me, certainly, when I was going through this, now that I look back and I'm more conscious of what I was doing in my past when I was being this way, I can see now that it was like this really awful double bind, right? It was like either, okay, if I have a need somewhere in my body that's coming up, something doesn't feel right, which means that there's a need I'm having that's not being met, I can either become conscious of that need, which means at that point I pretty much owe it to myself to either express that need or admit to myself that I'm not expressing that need on purpose. And both of those things are painful because I've been told, I've learned, quote unquote, I've been conditioned to believe that when I do have a need and I bring it up to someone, that it's not going to be received very well, right? I learned that from adults in my life, in my childhood, growing up with an abusive parent and growing up also with a legal system who, when I spoke up and said, hey, I have a need to not be abused, completely dismissed me and didn't take me seriously and didn't do anything to change the circumstances where I was essentially, legally owned in part by an abuser until I was 18 years old. So internalizing these, beliefs that speaking up about my needs is scary and dangerous, and most of all, that it just won't work. There's no point in me speaking up about my need, because if someone is not already seeing the obvious situation of what's going on, that my speaking up about it isn't going to do anything. In fact, it's probably going to make things worse. So what happens as I reach my early 20s and I get into my first formative relationships, right? I end up in relationships that are basically exactly the same way, that are mirroring this back to me, that are basically, that my options again are, if I speak up about my need, it's not going to go very well. Either I'm told I'm wrong, or I'm gaslighted, or I'm shamed somehow for having this need, or I'm told that it's not cool, or whatever it is, or I'm just made to feel in general that, my partner's needs are more, not just more important, but are more legitimate. Like, they're the needs that someone should have, right? And that my needs are like somehow like weird or crazy or stupid. So over time, all of this snowballs, and it creates this pattern where when I suddenly feel like, oh my gosh, I have a need, my body is like, we don't even want to deal with that. Like, just focus on other people's needs, because that's much easier, right? But over time, with me, it was ridiculous. It was almost like, the resentment had to build so much before I even noticed it was there, right? Because it was so much easier just to not deal with that. But for most people, you're going to find that resentment start to build anyway, and then it's regardless of how you choose to express that in the relationship, it's there. And it's going to be affecting your energy. It's going to be affecting your words and your actions, because it's this thing that you're holding on to in your body that's preventing you from being, in flow, from being relaxed, from being in your ease and in your happiness and in your bliss, because there's something in you, and that's why it feels so heavy. There's something in you that wants to be expressed. And when you reach the point in your life where you are really prioritizing having friendships and relationships where people listen to each other and respect each other and know how to treat each other well, then you're going to want to get comfortable with expressing your needs. Because if you're walking around in a friendship or a relationship with this unspoken resentment that's happening, then that's not fair to anyone. Because you want to be calling in friends who want the most healthy and functional relationships and friendships with you as possible. And so if you're going around holding on to these unmet needs, or holding on to the resentment around them, or both, then that's not really fair to the friendships that you're both wanting to create. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to the other person. I've had people speak up about their needs, sadly sometimes when it was a little too late for me to address them or fix them, because the situation had passed. And I was like, what was that? Why didn't you say something? Like, I would have been happy to address this with you. I just wish you had spoken up about it sooner, because at that point I could have done something. And at this point, it's like, we all know what happens. Like, the resentment builds up, and then there'll be like one thing, and then everything comes flooding out, right? I didn't like this, and I also didn't like this, I didn't like this, I didn't like this, I didn't like this, right? And it's like, whoa. And it's like, I wish that, when that happens, it's like, but I was here the whole time, and I was listening. And I would have been perfectly happy to make these changes or these adjustments in the moment, So I really want us to look at, it's like, I really want us to look at the ways that our being conditioned to not speak up about our needs is actually not serving us in those friendships and relationships that are meant to be healthy for us. Because we need to really operate under the assumption, under the belief that our loved ones really want to create relationships with us that are healthy and functional. And that means relationships where communication is safe, where you can ask up about a need that you have, that you can speak up and say what it is that you need, what it is that you want, what it is that you desire, and not be judged and not be shamed for that. Doesn't necessarily mean that that person is going to be able to meet every need that you have, but at least then you have a starting point for some navigation around it, right? Maybe that person says, well, I can't do that. That's maybe someone else's, maybe you need someone else to fill that need for you, or, or hey, how about we look at this and we create a compromise that really suits both of us, whatever that is. At least then you have that jumping off point. But so many of us are walking around afraid to speak up, and we allow these resentments to build up. And then again, like I said, they just come flooding out. And in most cases, most of the stuff that you're building up resentment about is now long in the past, and there's nothing that could be done to fix that, to change it at that point. So getting in touch with your needs and really like getting in tune with your body and achieving that emotional self-mastery is going to be so helpful to your relationships, because imagine how low stress it is just to be able to say in the moment the thing that you need. Like, hey, can you lower the TV volume while I'm trying to study? Even something like that, right? Hey, can I grab a seltzer from your fridge because I'm thirsty or whatever? Could you imagine if someone was in a friendship or relationship with me and they were just like sitting there thirsty the whole time and being mad at me that I hadn't offered them anything to drink when they were like afraid to ask for it, right? Could you imagine someone I don't really watch TV, so this probably doesn't apply to me personally, but like I don't like a lot of ambient. I'd probably be the person asking to turn the TV volume down. So I'll put myself in that role. All right, imagine I'm like with someone and I'm afraid to ask them to, watch their television with headphones or something like that, because I'm afraid that my need is going to be seen as burdensome or inconvenient to them. But then like I let this build up, and then like one day I'm just like, and you're always watching TV so loud, and they're like, you didn't say anything about that. So this idea that we shouldn't speak up about our needs because they're going to be inconvenient to other people. Because so often that's what we're programmed to feel by our parents, right? Because our parents need to meet a lot of our needs when we're children. And granted, we may have a lot of needs for our parents, and parenting is not easy, right? But nonetheless, regardless, it's really on us to start understanding that speaking up in the moment and asking for things is actually the most generous thing that we can do, because otherwise we're in that particular situation, because otherwise we're really expecting our loved ones to be mind readers, and that's not fair to them. So you want to set people up for success and really help them to be able to create that kind of relationship with you that's going to be healthy and functional for both of you. So I hope you guys can practice this. Again, tuning in, listening to your body, and really feeling what your needs are in the moment is a practice. And sometimes you may have to like tune in and be like, what does my body need right now? And sometimes just asking myself that question is enough, like leaving it open and just asking, like feeling in, like just tuning into my internal space and just being like, what are my needs right now? What is the thing that I need most right now? That's a whole practice unto itself. But we do want to, at the very least, get rid of that programming that says that our needs are selfish or inconvenient for others, because definitely not telling people about your needs is a lot worse. And do you really want people in your life who you speak up and you tell them about your needs and they dismiss you or they make you feel stupid for it, right? That's not your fault, that's their fault. If they can't handle your expression and articulation of your needs like an adult and navigate that with you in a healthy and empathic manner, then in my humble opinion, they don't deserve to be in your life. So start doing more of that. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time.